Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sealand News Brief. This week is the 20th week of the year. Let's take a look at the 30-year fixed mortgage rate. It's 5.25, stays about same as last week. And the 15-year, 4.25. Okay. And the FHA 4.75, and 10-year Treasury yield went down a little bit, just a tiny bit. Okay, and the 5-year ARM remains the same, 4.625. And I mentioned that you watch out the difference between 30-year fixed mortgage and 5-year ARM, right? Remember, if the gap becomes 1%, then definitely a lot of people is going to move to 5-year ARM, because if you calculate, it has a very good financial advantages. And the 7-year ARM is 4.75. Of course, the 7-year ARM a little bit higher than 5-year ARM. Okay, so I think this week is kind of hovering about same interest rate. It doesn't go up sharply, doesn't go down dramatically, so it stays the same. And therefore, our prime rate is 3.75 to 4%. And the Fed fund rate, we call sometimes 기준금리, is 0.75 to 1% now. Okay, let's take a look at the first news. This is not so good news, but COVID-19 levels back on rise in New Jersey. Yes, these days around neighbors, churches and schools, we hear more about the COVID-19 cases, positive cases. So COVID-19 cases and hospitalization are continuing to rise in New Jersey, and in fact, the same as New York too, okay? With nearly every county now seeing high levels of transmission, but severe outcomes. Intensive care admissions are still relatively low. That's good part. It's not really trouble, even though transmission is increasing. In a state that has one of the nation's highest vaccination rate at 76%, that means that New Jersey has a vaccination rate is 76%, which is one of the highest vaccination rate in the US. The high case counts with fewer immediate bad outcomes, creating a level of uncertainty among many New Jerseyans as they go about their daily lives amid another pandemic uptick when almost all public health mandates have been lifted. That means no mask indoor. But right now it's kind of confusing time. Indoor mask wearing has dropped significantly in recent months, even such places as Hudson County, which is often among the first places in New Jersey to get hit with COVID surge due to its dense population and close proximity to New York City. So even Hudson County, if you go there right now in stores, a lot of people, they don't wear masks. Okay, so, but then we hear the more cases are rising. So it's kind of confusing time right now. 뉴저지에 지금 트랜스미션이 늘어나는데, 그러나 시비어한 아웃컴, 그러니까 인텐시브 케어에 어드미션 되는 거는 아직도 낮은 상태에 있다. 그런 얘기고요. 뉴저지는 지금 76% vaccination rate를 가지고 있다. 가장 잘된 그 스테이트 중에 하나라고 합니다. 근데 지금 이제 퍼블리컬리는 우리가 제한을 많이 지금 드랍시켰잖아요. 그런데 지금 이제 좀 컴플릭이 되는 거죠. 이제 인도어에서도 지금 마스크를 안 쓰고 있는데, 허슨 카운티 같은 경우에는 굉장히 덴스되어 있기 때문에 population이 거기가 제일 먼저 이제 문제가 있었는데 코비드 시작이 될 때 그런 데서도 지금 마스크는 실내 마스크들을 거의 안 쓰고 있다. 오케이. 그런 지금 상태에 있다. 뉴욕도 지금 굉장히 트랜스미션 자체는 올라가고 있죠. 그래서 이게 지금 걱정을 해야 될 건지 말아야 될 건지 아니면 정말 with 이 코비드 시대 그래서 이게 정말 엔데믹으로 지금 가고 있는지 지금 주지사 같은 분들도 헷갈려요. 어떻게 좀 할 줄을 모르고 있는 그런 상태. 그래서 지금 이제 감기같이 취급이 되느냐 또 이제 이런 일이 있으면 너무 센시티브하게 반응한 분들도 있잖아요. 그죠? 굉장히 아주 느긋한 분들도 있어요. 막 본인이 포지티브라고 걸렸다 그러면서 앞에서 막 식사 같이 하고 뭐 이런 분들도 있고 It's a bit of a confusing time, but 조심해서 나쁠 건 없겠죠, 그죠? 마스크 쓰시는 게 개인적으로는 좋을 것 같아요. 가능하시면 쓰시도록. 오케이. And 한 가지 the statistics. New Jersey contributed about 3.4% of U.S. death toll. Okay. As of Tuesday, 33,553 COVID deaths. So New Jersey death rate is 3.4% of US. But the population is only 2.7%. So compared to population, the ratio 2.7%, New Jersey is higher. The death rate is higher to 3.4%. 뉴저지가 그 death 사망자율은 미국 전체에서 3.4%네요. 근데 population 자체는 2.7%이기 때문에 population 대비 죽은 분들이 좀 많다. 33,553명. Okay, the next news is Hyundai Auto will build EV factory in Georgia. And this announcement is not yet, but will announce this plan to build an electrical car factory in Savannah, Georgia, during the time the President Biden is visiting Seoul, Korea. So they're kind of planning to kind of big announcement when Biden visits Seoul, Korea. And this factory will create about 8,500 employees and it will cost about $7 billion. Local newspaper Savannah Morning News reported the factory will Bryan County and the lot is about, it's a huge 2,284 acres. They reported along with the prospective rendering picture. And this lot was purchased by Savannah Department of Economic Development at $61 million in May last year. Currently, Hyundai Kia factory is in West Point, Georgia, close to Alabama. So Hyundai has two factories in Georgia. This is borderline of Georgia. So if you go down a little bit, this is Florida, the Alabama is here, and South Carolina. Okay, and Tennessee. So it's surrounded by this Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Florida. And this is Atlanta, and actually Korean town is like a Duluth. It's a little bit of a north in that area, northwest area, actually almost west. And east, the west is a distraction. And this is Savannah. So they're going to announce electrical car factory here. Mainly is a battery factory. And already they have Kia, the factory near here is West Point, near the Columbus. So This is Atlanta, and the Kia factory is here, and they will have another factory is Savannah here. Okay. And the Sea Land Realty right now, we have a brokership in Georgia and office address in Atlanta, Duluth at this moment. 오케이, 그 현대오토가 지금 그 조지아에다가 전기차 공장을 짓겠다고 그러는데 한 8,500명 엠플로이가 이제 창출될 거고, 임플로이먼트가 창출될 거고요. 그 공사비는 7 빌리언 정도, 그리고 라 사이즈는 2,284 에이커니까 우리가 좀 상상하기가 힘들 정도로 많이 크네요, 그죠? 그래서 지금 바이든이 한국 방문 시에 이거를 이제 터뜨리겠다, 뉴스를 그렇게 지금 준비를 하고 있다. 그런 예정이 있습니다. 아까 지도에서 봤지만은 이 알라바마 경계 쪽으로 가면서 기아 자동차 공장이 지금 하나 있고요. 사바라는 이제 그 반대쪽 이스트 그 코스트 쪽에 지금 이제 세울 예정이 있다고 아직 발표가 나온 것 같지는 않고요. 나올 예정이고요. Okay. The next news is deal reached in condo collapse suit. This we're talking about the Florida, Surfside, Florida. If you remember, how many people died at the time? 98 people died because of the condo tower collapsed. Actually, it was early morning. In fact, so almost everybody were asleep. And it is very rare event for a building to collapse with no clear trigger, meaning such as earthquake or some, maybe bomb exploded, etc. But without those clear trigger, it just collapsed suddenly in the morning, and 98 people died. And the unit number was about 136 apartment. And this building was a 40-year-old building. So relatively young, 40 years old in US. And the original estimation, okay, was the settlement cost was 50 million, but finally they reached the settlement of $997 million. So that's a lot. I mean, compared to original expectation. I mean, for those victims, it's not a lot, never a lot, but just a statistical probability point of view. And but since then, there are a lot of questioning about the condo structure, especially in Florida, and they are questioning about the homeowners association and property management companies, etc. They should have a more rigorous guidelines to maintain, to manage these condo buildings. Okay, so 아시겠지만은 작년이었죠. 작년에 이 콘도 타워가 무너져가지고 130개 유닛 타워가 이제 무너져가지고 40년 빌딩인데 다들 자고 있는 이제 early morning에 갑자기 어떤 이유도 없이 earthquake도 아니고 폭탄이 터진 것도 아니고 그냥 빌딩이 그냥 무너져서 98명이 죽었는데 처음에 세틀먼트 예상이 한 50 밀리언이었는데 상상 밖으로 코트에서 결정이 이제 합의가 된 게 997 밀리언으로 세틀먼트가 됐다. 그래서 그 이후로 지금 아시지만은 콘도미니엄의 HOA나 그다음에 프로퍼티 매니지먼트 컴퍼니들에게 이제 더 철저한 가이드라인을 지금 줘야 된다. 뭐 여러 가지 그런 게 지금 이야기가 되고 있는데 그렇게 된다면 아마도 컨도미니엄 값은 더 올라가게 될 거다. 그렇죠? 아무래도 돈을 더 많이 써서 메인테넌스를 해야 되기 때문에 그런 결과가 나오지 않을까. 물론 그러나 수요 공급의 법칙에 따라서 결정되겠지만은, 그러나 플로리다 같은 경우도 수요는 굉장히 계속 있기 때문에 플로리다도 그렇고, 플로리다는 굉장히 집값이 많이 오른 편이죠. 상대적으로 조지아보다도 훨씬 더 올랐죠. 조지아도 지금 많은 리타이어들이 내려가는 그런 실정이 있고요. Okay, next news is new home buyers get hit hard by rate rise. We're talking about new constructions, home buyers for new constructions. Well, as you can imagine, it's really troubling cases because, as you can see, interest rate going up, of course, and all these materials, construction materials, also cost is going up. So that's why it's like double burden for new home buyers cases. But mostly they are waiting. Okay, but some cases, because new construction is different than purchasing existing homes, because it takes time, sometimes 6 months or maybe it could be a year. So right now, some people, they have to pay double interest rate, like let's say high 2% range, let's say the best case, or 3%, but now it's close to 6% interest rate. So it's about double. And especially this price becomes more than the loan amount, more than $1 million. Let's say $1 million, $2 loan case. This number becomes very significant. So this is kind of problem. And new home buyers, it takes about more than 10% of U.S. home purchases. Okay. So, and then often they sign the contract and pay deposits several months before their homes are ready, because already they pay the deposit money. And the closing time is going to be maybe 6 months or several months later. So during the time interest rate changes, then they have to pay more money. 지금 new home buyer들이 굉장히 제일 지금 힘들어하고 있는데요. 집값도 물론 전반적으로 올라가지만 이자율이 공사하는 기간 동안에 막 올라가고 있어서, 어떤 분은 그러니까 컨트랙트 디파짓 할 때 계산한 거하고 지금 이제 클로징 할 때 계산을 해봤을 때에 이자가 거의 2배가 되는 그러한 집들도 있다. 더더군다나 또 무슨 문제죠? 서플라이 체인 문제. 그러니까 자재가 공급이 안 되니까 점점 늦어진단 말이죠. 그러면 이자는 지금 올라가는 모드이기 때문에 이 퍼스트 홈 바이어들이 굉장히 힘들어진다. 대부분은 그래도 이제 견디지만은 이제 포기하는 사람들은, 이 빌더들은 다시 팔아야 되는, 시장에 나오고 다시 팔게 되는 그런 현상들이 있다. 그래서 뉴 홈 바이어는 지금 한 10%가 좀 더 된다 그래요. existing home purchase, 이거 전체 홈 purchase 볼 때에. Okay, next news is foreclosures approach return to pre-COVID levels. Now we're talking about foreclosures. Well, the nationwide memorandum expired about 8 months ago, and now foreclosure filings increased to the highest level since the pandemic began. So looks like pandemic period, because we had a moratorium, means they cannot process the foreclosures, right? So that's why it's not many foreclosures, but now the foreclosure level becomes pre-pandemic level. In March, 33,333 properties across the U.S. faced foreclosure. Is 29% jump from February, and whole first quarter foreclosures is 78,271 properties, and that's 39% increase from the previous quarter. So we're getting there. And March was 11th consecutive month in which foreclosure activity saw a year-over-year increase. Okay, and also properties foreclosed on in the first quarter were in the process for an average of 917 days. So it's less than 3 years, and down from 941 days in previous quarter. So also duration becomes a little bit shorter. Among major metros, Chicago was the worst. Okay, so the greatest is the number of new filing during the quarter with 3,101. New York City is the second, so 2,580 starts. And despite the statewide moratorium that expired 2 weeks into January. So that's the situation. And New Jersey case, I don't know. New Jersey also one of the worst cases, they said, right after moratorium expired. So I don't have a recent statistics in New Jersey, but if you are kind of interested in, you can go into county, the sheriff department's public website, and you will see the notice of foreclosures. So you can have a feeling, okay, it's getting increased, or I think New Jersey is also a lot of foreclosure cases. 그 foreclosure 케이스가 이제 팬데믹 전 레벨로 돌아간다, 그런 발표가 지금 나온 거고요. 왜냐하면 이제 그 모라토리엄, foreclosure를 금지했던 모라토리엄을 이제 중지한 이후 한 8개월 지금 지났다. 그래서 지금 각 미국 전체에서 굉장히 올라가고 있고, 그 다음에 이제 프로세스 기간도 조금씩 줄어들고 있다. 뭐 한 917일 정도로 줄어들었다. 근데 원래 한 에버리지로 941일 정도 걸렸다. 토탈, 그러니까 맨 처음에 모기지를 못 내고, 그다음에 모기지 수를 한 때부터, 이제 포클로즈 수를 한 때부터 이제 그 옥션 세일해서 처리되는 때까지를 지금 얘기를 하는 거겠죠. 그 중에 월스트가 시카고고요. 최악이 시카고고, 그 다음에 두 번째가 뉴욕시티다. 그래서 한 2,580 케이스 정도가 뉴욕시티에 지금 있다. 뉴저지도 상당히 많을 거예요. 아마 그때 모라토리엄 끝나고 거의 바로 발표했을 때 한 6번째로 나쁜 주로 그 포클로저 상황이 그랬던 기억이 나는데, 오케이. The next news is Fed is watching for signs of inflation coming down. Of course, that's what they want. Okay, the chair of Jerome Powell said Tuesday that the central bank is focused on getting rapid inflation under control, and it is ready to intensify its efforts to tamp down price pressures if they do not begin to ease as policymakers expect. Yet we don't see any news or anybody saying the inflation calm down. We don't hear that yet. Okay, but Fed is watching day by day. Any statistics comes out that they control the inflation rate. But now consumer prices climbed 8.3% in April from the prior year. And while inflation eased somewhat in annual basis, the report suggests that the price pressures continue to run hot. And as you know, central bank has begun raising interest rates to try and cool the economy, announcing 0.25% increase in March. Already we did that. and 0.25% in March and 0.5% increased in the early May. Okay, and this was the biggest increase since 2000. 페드에서 지금 이제 아주 센시티브하게 지금 이자율을 워치하고 있고, 만약에 이게 작동이 잘 안 된다 싶으면 더 인텐시파이 하겠다. 그 얘기는 다음번 인크리즈, 기존 금리 인크리즈를 0.75를 한꺼번에 올릴 수 있다고 하는 생각을 표시하는 게 아닌가, 그런 생각이 좀 들고요. 올해 들어서 지금 두 번 기준금리를 올렸죠. 마치에 0.25% 올라갔고, 그다음에 얼리 메이에 0.5%를 지금 올려서 올해 들어서 지금 0.75%를 올린 건데, 그게 지금 2000년 이후로 제일 많이 올린 거다. 그렇게 돼 있고요. The next is the last one are the tech news. Google released the Pixel Watch and the Pixel tablet. Now Google want to move into hardware business. Well, if we imagine Google is a software company, technology company, but they want to get into hardware market. And also they announced the prototype. The prototype is experimental unit. Okay, they made as an experiment of smart glasses. Wow, which translates foreign language on the glasses. It's hard to imagine, but Google has a translator engine, right? So if someone speaks foreign language, then these glasses will pick it up and translate. Then they put the translation on your glasses, so you can see it. It's hard to imagine, but anyway, they are doing that. Well, that's it for today's news. And if you have any interesting comment or question, you can do that right now. Otherwise, we'll see you all next week. Thank you for joining.